A lot of commentators are looking at this budget and saying that it rules out an early election. This is not an election budget. We're clearly, if we're going to have an election, it will be at the end of the year or maybe even early next year. What's your view?
My view is what the Prime Minister's told me, and he's also told the public, which is that he always thought there'd be an election at the back end of this year in the autumn at some point. And that's always been my view, as I've expressed to anybody who's asked me.
Let's talk to Natasha Clark, LBC's political editor, who was so rudely interrupted earlier on by Sir Keir Starmer's arrival after that break. Natasha, that was interesting at the end there, wasn't it? Confirm it's May the 2nd. That was a bring it on moment, wasn't it, from Starmer?
It was, but Labour obviously want an early election because they think they're going to win. So that's obviously the tack that Labour and Keir Starmer are going down towards at the moment. For what it's worth, I agree with your analysis just there. That didn't really feel to me like the budget just before a party that's about to launch into an election campaign. However, I think we could start to see, like you said, the formations of what we can expect the Tory manifesto to look like. They were talking repeatedly about wanting to cut taxes. Obviously, we can have a debate about the highest tax burden in modern times and whether people really feel better off. But what was interesting in his speech was how Jeremy Hunt talked about how people who are in work get taxed twice for national insurance and for income tax. I think that was a big hint that we are potentially going to see the Conservative Party make a promise in their manifesto to perhaps scrap national insurance altogether. Now, that would be obviously a huge promise if they did decide to make that. And obviously they have done that. They have made quite big strides towards doing so in the past 6 months.
One thing that has come out, Rachel, is a number of newspapers and commentators are suggesting this moves us closer to a May election. Do you think that is the case, or is it more likely now that we go in the autumn?
Well, I say bring it on. I think
No. But what do you think? No, I know you and your colleagues. I know you and your colleagues are chomping at the bit. But how do you interpret it? So not what you want. Do you think we're closer to a May vote, or does it look more like the autumn to you?
Well, in a budget, and I've sat across the dispatch box for quite a few of them now, you always expect a rabbit out of the hat at the end, and there wasn't a rabbit yesterday. And I think that many people had thought that the Chancellor had something up his sleeve, whether it was going to be an income tax giveaway or indeed, some investment into our health service to get waiting lists down. Right. He didn't deliver that yesterday, and I sensed on the Conservative benches the feeling, the mood was quite flat, that they hoped that the Chancellor was going to pull something out of the hat to improve the fortunes of the Conservative Party. But look, we're ready for that election whenever it comes, the sooner the better, in my view.
One thing that comes out of the coverage this morning is that it's being floated as very much a pre-election budget. Do you think that we might be looking at a May general election?
Well, we know there's going to be an election this year, and
yes,
I've been operating on the assumption that there was a possibility that it could be on the 2nd of May. I think that's the earliest date. And the Prime Minister, whose decision it is, has indicated it's going to be in the second half of this year. And so I think the latest date's going to be sort of mid-November. So sometime in that window, we will have a general election, I think.
So you're not dusting off the posters and the leaflets for a May election just yet?
I've been preparing to be ready for
You're
a
on
May the 2nd election.
Things
Absolutely.
So, Robert, let me ask you just finally, if I would, lots of speculation in Westminster today about the timing of the next general election. Will it be May? Will it be November? Will it be January? When, sir, do you think it's most likely to be?
It's going to be the autumn. I think all this guff about May is actually being drummed up by understandably, colleagues in the Labour Party who want an early election. They're going to make that noise. They want to try and make it a sort of Gordon Brown moment. I think the Prime Minister's been very clear. He said his working assumptions later in the year. Chancellor, I think this evening, has said similar. I expect this election to be in November.
November. Thank you, Sir Robert. That's a very clear answer. Good to have you on. Thank you.
I understand that you are unlikely to be the person that announces when the general election is going to be, so I'm not going to ask you that question. But wasn't today, when you think of what the Conservatives face, when you look at the reality of so many Conservative MPs saying they're not going to bother standing or privately admitting to Westminster correspondents that you're toast as a party when it comes to the next general election, wasn't today like watching the captain or the manager of Accrington Stanley preparing his team for the Champions League when actually you all know you're going to the Vauxhall Conference? Didn't it feel a bit like that in the Commons today?
Absolutely not.
I mean, I couldn't think of a worse characterisation of what actually happened today. What you saw today was a significant tax cut, again, for 29 million people.
We hope this is the last budget before the election, and we hope the Prime Minister in a week or two says that polling day will be on the 2nd of May. And if that's the case, Labour's manifesto will come out a week or two into the election campaign, and then you will see what our offer is in the manifesto at that stage.
So we'll only know once the date of the election is announced, is that right? So, and it might be May, it might be November, it might be January.
I suspect that's the case. If the election falls later in the year, we may make a decision to publish more detail in advance. But as it stands at the moment, it will be in the manifesto.
Okay.